Hey class, this is Mr. Hofstad here with another video on how to keep your ledgers going for the simulation in our finance class. If you haven't already checked out the video on the pre-start plan, you should probably do that first because that comes first on the ledger. But if you've already done that and you're ready to see how things work when we're now into the simulation, you can tune in here. All right, so we've entered all of the information from our pre-start plan and the beginning of January into our ledger. And now the simulation has begun. So we're still technically in January, so we can get some more of these dates pasted in. So Control C, Control V, and you can actually select a bunch. I'm thinking I'm going to need a couple of these. All right, and what's next? So I have my factories that I've been given for free, these gifts, the factories and warehouse expansions that I've purchased with some of the money from my loan. And now the simulation begins. And the very first thing we do any month is pay our fixed expenses. So that's a little bit of a process because you will need to calculate how much, really. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to, right at the start of the month, this is actually something that's going to be helpful to do even before you do bidding for RMUs. Because as soon as I buy something, let's say I actually went and I bought some agriculture RMUs, we'll see that here my RMUs for agriculture are at 2 before I did any bidding. And that's actually all I need to pay fixed expenses on. The storage of RMUs and of FIUs at the start of the month. So I have 2 agriculture RMUs, 2 commerce RMUs, 1 and 1 for FIUs. All right, so as soon as I change that, and let's say I buy 10 more of these and it costs me, I don't know, $6,000. Just making up numbers there. As soon as I enter that, it didn't actually change it yet. It will change it next month. So that works out well. If you don't get your fixed expenses done right off the bat, it should have your starting numbers here as well. All right, so we need to calculate our fixed expenses. And to do that, we're going to go into the price info sheet here on the bottom. And this is the section we are interested in, our gameplay monthly fixed expenses. A lot of you will want to do this with paper and pencil or a calculator. You can actually use the blank space here though, and Google Sheets or Excel can work just like a calculator for you too. So I'll kind of show you how that might speed it up for you. All right, so to calculate our fixed expenses, we have to know how much of each of these items we own. All right, I'm just going to work through it like so. So for January, I know from my summary sheet, we'll start with the standard factories, that I have 2 agriculture and 2 commerce. So I'll go into my price info sheet, and I'm going to do a little equation here. This is going to be equal to the cost of my agriculture standard factory times 2, because I have 2 of them, plus the cost of my commerce factory standard times 2. And when I hit enter, it's actually already calculated how much those 2 and those 2 will add up to. All right, then I've got my automated factories. Actually, do I have any automated factories? No. If you look on the summary sheet, we've got none. All right, and I'm going to hit escape here because it thinks I'm trying to do a calculation, but I'm actually just going to leave that at 0 for this month. Basic warehouse. This one's always going to be applicable. You're paying $750 for agriculture and $750 for commerce at the start of every month for your starting basic warehouse that can store 10 agriculture and 5 commerce. All right, it doesn't matter if you're using both or not. That total will always just be add those 2 together. and that's going to be 1,500. And every single month, so if I'm doing this in the sheet here, I can actually just drag that across. It's always going to be, oh, no, that's not going to like it. We'll do a copy and a paste. And better yet, I'm going to paste as a value. So you saw when I did copy and paste and when I dragged it, it's actually using my equation and it's changing that. Google Sheets will do that. Excel will do that. And if you're running into that problem and you want to avoid it, you can always right click and paste as values only. It won't use your equation then. It will just use the number. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's just my standard factories in my warehouse. I also have to pay for any warehouse upgrades. And on my summary sheet, it's a little bit tricky to calculate that. All right. It is possible, but if we go to our pre-start plan, that's going to be there for us a bit simpler. In the future, though, when I'm doing more construction, I need to keep track of how many additional warehouse expansions I'm adding on, because that's going to affect how much I'm paying for these warehouse upgrades. So as you hopefully saw, we had 5 agriculture. So my agriculture cost 800 per expansion, and I bought 5 of them. Plus, we had our commerce expansions and 4 of them. Right, so that's just off of these capacities. That requires a bit of math to calculate because each basic warehouse has 10, and each for agriculture, and each expansion will hold 8. You can find all that information here. That's the capacity increase. But if you've got your pre-start plan, those numbers are going to be a bit easier to work with. All right, but just know that in the future, as I add on warehouses, if I add on warehouses, that will need to be adjusted for my warehouse upgrade fixed expense. All right, so that added up pretty good. I'm not quite done either. I'm also storing those starting RMUs I had. That's going to be found on my summary sheet. I had 2 of each of commerce and agriculture, and FIU is 1 of each. So I'll quickly throw that in my calculator, which is the Excel sheet itself, equals, that starts the equation, and I can click on any cell, and it has that number in there. So 100, and I know I have 2 of them, so I'm going to go times the little star 2. All right, but I also want to add on my commerce, and there's also 2 of those. 800 for storing those free RMUs, so maybe they aren't so free. They're more free. So this is going to, don't listen to that, it's just going to predict what I want to do, but it's wrong. My 300 plus my 500. All right, that does take a little bit of time. Once you get good at it and you're using Google Sheets or you're using your pen and paper, a lot of these are going to fly by. But the big thing to look out for is when you're adding in new factories, when you're adding in new warehouse expansions, or when your RMU storage changes each month, that you're adjusting those numbers. So now I'll let it do what it wanted to do last time. It's going to sum all of these numbers for me, and I can just hit tab or enter, and it did that for me. So that is my fixed expenses for January. A bit of work, but need to do it. Need to know how much your overhead costs, your administration, all of that is going to be for the month. All right, now we can take that number into our ledger. So we got to think chronologically what's happening. I'm going to get a bill first, and we can search up the fixed expense liability. It's a bill. It starts with number 2. All right, then we need to ask ourselves, all right, I know how much, but is that a debit or a credit? And you can always go back to our accounting equation when you're wondering, right? So we're looking at a liability. It starts with a number 2, which all liabilities do. And are we gaining a bill or are we losing a bill? Is it going up as a bill to pay or down? Well, they're giving me the bill, so that's going up. That's got to be a credit to my liability. So I'm going to credit that amount, 22,100. You can even control and paste it if you're working within. Oops, that did not like that. Paste as a value. When you're working within sheets, sometimes it's easier, sometimes not so much. All right, so I got my bill. When I got the bill, I needed to balance with something. I haven't paid it yet, so I'm not going to affect my cash. But when something is going to cost you money and you're not really gaining anything for it, that's going to be affecting our equity. And it's going to be a loss. So it's an additional accumulated loss account starting with 3. All right, and this is still a fixed expense. All 4 of these are going to be my fixed expenses for January. All right, and now our net worth or our equity has gone down. So I'm going to debit that additional loss account by this same amount to keep it balanced. Nice and balanced. And you can see, I always like to keep track of what's going on in my chart of accounts up here. Now I've increased my losses. The first time I did that was from my interest that I paid. And now I also have my fixed expenses. So all these equity things are going to be things I have to pay, these losses that aren't giving my company anything. They're not giving me resources or revenue. They're just these mandatory payments I need to make. All right, so I got the bill. Next thing I want to do is pay the bill. So I'm going to get rid of my cash. And cash is an asset starting with 1, which means that when I'm getting rid of it, my company's paying it, it's going out of us, I need to credit it. So credit the cash. That same value, and as you pay the bill goes away. So my fixed expense liability, my fixed expense bill goes away. When you decrease a liability, that means we are debiting it. Debit. And this column is my debit, 22,100. All right, that's it. That's my fixed expenses. And whenever you are looking at an account with a 2, a liability, one important thing you want to look at in your chart of accounts is that when you're done that transaction in the ledger, did it end off back at 0? And it did. Your liabilities, these bills, you're always going to get them and immediately pay them. So this section, anything starting with a 2, should end up at 0. And they did.